Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today I want to show you how you can make this simple helicopter in Blender, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it will really help my channel. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see more like this in the future, please hit that subscribe and additionally bell button if you want to get notified when I release something new. And if you're new to the world of 3D and Blender, and you want to become a 3D illustrator, go and check out my courses that are carefully designed to teach you beginner and intermediate skills in quickest and most effective way. For example, with the new Ultimate 3D bundle, you can go from simple cubic designs all the way to full character illustration in a matter of weeks. So if you're interested, please go check out the link in the description. Now let's jump right into empty Blender file, and I will leave everything here, just delete this light, so press X and delete. And now we'll start with the default cube and we'll change this into body of a helicopter. So let's select the cube, tap into the edit mode, and let's press S then Y to scale it up like this. Now we can go into the modifiers panel and let's add subdivision surface modifier, and I will proceed and add some more cuts. So let's press Ctrl R and cut here in the middle, just like that, and one more cut here. So let's press Ctrl R and do another. And now we'll slide some vertices around, so select these two by holding Shift and press G then Y and slide them back like this. And now let's alt click this loop right here and here as well, and press S then X and scale it down on X axis. Now we can push this a little bit higher up, so we can toggle X-ray, select these vertices, press G then Z and move them up. And of course these two in the back, we can slide them on Y axis. So press G then Y and slide them. So this will serve as the base body for the helicopter, and now we can continue by adding a tail. So let's tab in and select these two vertices. Doesn't really matter, we just want to place the cursor there in the middle, so Shift S and cursor selected. Now tab out and let's press Shift A and let's add a single vert. If you don't have this option here, go ahead into the edit preferences, add-ons, and activate extra objects add-on, and you should see all these options here activated for you. And now let's add that single vert. I will press 3 on a numpad to go to a side view, and after adding a single vert you are already in the edit mode, and make sure you have the vertex select activated here. Press E then Y and extrude towards the back just like this. Now we'll tab out, right click, convert to curve. Let's go to the curve settings, geometry section, and we'll increase the depth just like this. Now tab in, select this control point and let's press Alt S to increase its radius just like that. And now we can press A to select all and move this down. And now we can tab out, press S then Z and scale it up so it's not so rounded. And now update the proportions, so tab back in, select this control point and move it on a Z axis like that. And we can press Alt S and make this a little bit smaller maybe. Okay, so that's the tail. Now tab in, select this control point and Shift S and cursor selected, and we can press Shift A and let's add a circle. Now I will modify this to 16 segments and tab in, make this smaller and press R then Y and 90 degrees. Let's confirm with enter, and now we can tab out, press G then Y and move it back like this. Okay, and now tab back in and make sure you do it in the edit mode. Press G then X and move it to the side tiny bit just like that. And now in the modifiers panel let's add mirror modifier. Make sure you enable clipping and then press E then X and extrude towards the middle just like that. And now we can alt click this loop right here, press F to fill, I to inset, and now we can save this for later. So let's press P and separate that selection. Now alt click this loop once again. There's a hole there now, so we can press E then X and extrude this inside just like that. Now press A to select everything and Shift N to recalculate normals just in case. Now tab out and we have this separated piece right here, and we can disable mirror modifier there, we won't need that. And now tab in, press A to select all and G then X to slide it back a little bit so it sits in the middle again. And now we can press S to scale it down tiny bit and I to inset like this. Now let's go for a face select by pressing 3, and we can select some of these faces by holding Shift just like that, press X and delete faces. So this will be a little propeller here, so let's press A to select all and E to extrude. Now let's tab out and let's select this ring once again, and I want to select these top faces, so let's select one of these and hold Ctrl and click here. Now press Shift D to duplicate, right click to release in place, and P, enter to separate into a new object. Now tab out, select that new object and tab back in. And of course we need to make this a little bit more narrow, so let's press 2 for edge select, alt click here, and G twice for vertex slide. Let's press A to select all. Let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad, and let's press E to extrude, and now S, then Z, and scale to 0 on a Z-axis, enter, and now we can press S to scale it down, and G additionally to place it somewhere around here. So this is something you should have here. You can press G then X to additionally scale it, or rather move it towards the middle, and the mirror modifier will take care of the rest. So that's the tail. Now let's take care of the propeller. So I will tab out, select the body, and go for face select, select this face right here, and Shift S and cursor to select it. Now tab out and let's press Shift A and let's add a cylinder, and I will modify this to 16 segments as well. Tap in and press S to scale it down. Now press R, then X, and rotate it on the X-axis, then press S, then Y to scale it up. Let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and now press G then X and move it to the side. And now let's add another mirror modifier here as well. So this will be like the engines. Now we can tab out and position it better over the body of the helicopter, like this. And now let's hold Shift S, cursor to select it, and now let's press Shift A and let's add circle. Now I will tab in, scale the circle down, switch to the vertex select by pressing 1, press E then Z and extrude it up just like this and scale it down. Let's look from the side, and we can see this is not high enough, but we can press F to fill and I to inset and extrude one more time. So this is looking much better. So Shift S, cursor to select it. Now we can tab out and let's press Shift A and let's add a plane. This will be our propeller. So let's press Tab to enter edit mode and S to scale it down, and now S then Y to scale it on Y axis however far you like, something like this, and we can press E to extrude. And now the final touch, I will hold Shift S, snap cursor to select it again, tab out and let's press Shift A and let's add another circle, tap into the edit mode, press S and scale it down, press F to fill, E to extrude once again and scale down. So that's the parts of the propeller to make it a little bit more, sophisticated. And now let's select these engines and we'll edit them as well. So tap into the edit mode and I will switch to the face select or press 3. Select the back face and press I to inset, E to extrude and S to scale. And in the front we can select the face, press Ctrl B to bevel. And now select this face, press I to inset and extrude inside. Okay, and the final part, we want to create the landing gear. So tab out, select the body, and again we'll place the cursor somewhere here. So I will hit 2 for edge select this edge. Hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now tab out and let's press Shift A and let's add a plane. Now I will tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down, and let's enable X-ray view again, and let's press Ctrl R to create a cut here in the middle, right click to release it in place. Let's select this edge and press X and delete vertices. We need only half here. And now let's select this edge, look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad and extrude it just like this. Now we can press Shift D to duplicate this edge and P, enter to separate into a separate object. Now let's select these two edges by holding Shift, press X and delete edges, so we are left only with these. And now go for a vertex select by pressing 1, select these two vertices by holding Shift and Ctrl Shift B to vertex bevel, and we'll increase the number of segments with the mouse wheel to something like this. Now tab out and select this edge right here that we separated before, press A to select all and S, then Y to scale it up just like this. Select the front vertex, let's look from the side by pressing 3 and do something like this here. And optionally, if this is too sharp, you can Ctrl Shift B and create more segments there. Okay, now tab out. And one last thing to do here, let's select the original piece, and we can see there's still part of the edge there that I forgot to delete. So let's go for edge select here or press 2, select this edge, press X and delete edges. So now we can tab out, right click and convert to curve and do the same here. And right now we can select both of them, press Ctrl J to join them, and in the curve settings increase the depth, and you should have something like here, and you can enable to fill caps. And finally you can add mirror modifier with clipping. Now let's toggle the X-ray again, and we'll finish this helicopter design to make it a little bit more smooth. So let's select the body here, and first of all I will apply this subdivision and add another one. So let's press Ctrl 2 to add a new subdivision modifier, right click and shade smooth. Now tab in, and you can see we have this original mesh in place after the first subdivision. So we can select this vertex, for example, and slide it down by pressing G twice, and some of these as well. And now to make this a little bit easier, let's enable X-ray again, and let's look from the front and delete all of these vertices on the side there, and let's enable mirror modifier and move it in the stack on top and enable clipping. Don't forget to do that. And now let's go for face select, disable the X-ray view, and now let's select these 4 vertices, press Alt E and extrude faces along normals. Inside a little bit like this, you can help by holding shift, that will make it more subtle. And now let's do that once again, so Alt E, extrude faces along normals to make it a little bit more sharp, so we have some window there. And now let's press Ctrl R and create the loop cut there, and alt click this loop here and press G twice to slide it back. And now go for face select by pressing 3, select these 2 faces by holding shift, and Alt E and extrude faces along normals. And again we'll do the same like before. So I think I'm satisfied with this. And to make this body a little bit more smooth, because you can see these edges are too close together, you can select some of these and press G twice to slide them further from each other, and that will make this area a little bit more smooth. And you know, of course, you can slide these vertices around. Now select the landing setup, right click and shade smooth. And now for the rest of the model, we can get away with just using the bevel modifier. So first of all, let me right click and shade smooth this one, and you can press Ctrl 1 to add some subdivision there. And for the rest of these objects, let's select one of them and let's add modifier and bevel modifier. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit closer, and we'll add 2 segments. And let's make sure in the geometry we are using arc for the miter, and we disable clamp overlap so we actually see what we are doing here with the bevel amount. And let's reduce it like this. And of course in the shading I want to enable harden normals. And now let's transfer this bevel modifier to all of the other objects. So by holding shift, let's select these as well. And we can select the propeller as well. Now hold shift and select the engines again. That will make them highlighted in yellow so they're active. And now click here the little arrow and copy to select it. That will copy the bevel modifier to all the other objects. And now with all of them selected, we can go to the object data properties normal section, and by holding Alt we can apply these options to all of the selected objects. So hold Alt and click auto smooth. And by holding Alt, slide this all the way to 180 degrees. Now right click and shade smooth, and you have some nice smooth objects without actually adding subdivision modifier. And now the only thing remains is to select everything, hold shift to click the body of the helicopter, press Ctrl P and set parent to object. Now let's look from the side, and we can press G then Z and move this up so it sits on the ground there. So that's the helicopter modeling. I think this may be too large, so let's make it a little bit smaller by pressing S. And now I'll proceed and try to create a quick looping animation so we have some fun with this. So let's go to the animation workspace, and first thing I want to do is to enable graph editor here. We'll need that quite extensively, and let's look from the side. And first of all, let's frame our animation. So let's go to output settings, and I will switch this to 30 frames per second. And I think something like 220 frames for the animation should be enough. And now let's select the body of the helicopter. This is the main object that moves the whole helicopter. And first of all, I want to create the movement on the y-axis. The plan is, if we enable camera view, this is a little bit too low, so let's select the camera, press G then Z and move it up, and now press G then Z twice to move it back. So the plan is the helicopter will take off, leave to the left side, and then appear on the right side and land, and then we can repeat this loop. So first thing we can do is to try move it on the y-axis. So let's look from the side again, and let's move to somewhere like frame 20. we want some build-up. The propeller will start to spin, so let's try something like 30. 1 second build-up should be fine. Now let's press I and insert location. And let's insert rotation as well here. And we can see all of these tracks here. So first of all, let's tidy up there, and we'll be moving on Y-axis and on Z-axis when taking off and landing. We won't be doing any lateral movement, so let's select the X location and press X to delete. And in terms of rotation, we'll be rotating only on X-axis, that means like this. So let's delete Y rotation and Z rotation. We won't need any of those, and that will make this a little bit easier to manage. And now let's press Shift D and duplicate these keyframes all the way towards here. So this is where the helicopter will land, and we'll have another 30 seconds to kind of slow the propeller down and prepare it for the frame 1. Now let's disable Z location and X rotation, and we'll be working just with these keyframes. And we can already see we have some keyframe right here, and if you move it up or down, you can see the helicopter moving front and back. So we can just press Shift D and duplicate this keyframe, press X to maintain its position, and for example, we want the helicopter on the frame 80 to be gone from the view. So let's move to frame 80, and let's press G then Y and move it somewhere like here. So it looks like 15 meters away or something like that. So right now we have this animation where the helicopter starts to move forward and, you know, then goes back. So we need to do something different here, and we'll just move to frame 81 and duplicate this keyframe, press X and slide it just 1 frame and move it on the other side. So press G then Y and move it up like this, all the way like 20 meters back. So here it will basically just switch position. You can of course press T and enable constant, so it doesn't matter where you move this, it will be just always constant. There will be no easing between the keyframes. So right now we have something like this. It goes towards front and then comes from the back. Now I want this returning movement to be more rapid, so it kind of goes in speed already. So let's select this handle and move it down like this, so the helicopter is already accelerated and decelerating when returning. So it kind of goes out and then very quickly returns. And you know, we can play with the positioning of this, doesn't really matter right now. Let's play with the other axis and let's actually move the helicopter up and down. So let's now enable Z location, and that's these 2 keyframes right there. And here it will start just going up. So we can select this keyframe, press Shift D and move it somewhere here. And let's move the timeline so we actually see the height, and I think it can go higher up like this. And then, you know, press Shift D and X and move it back. So we have something like this. And of course, this is not polished movement. We are basically just blocking out the animation at this point. And we'll need to add some rotation as well. So let's enable that X rotation. And it's down here and it's covered with the Y location. So let's disable that one. Let's select the keyframe. Let's press Shift D and then X to move it here. I don't know, like 10 frames. And we can of course modify the rotation. And you can see these numbers here. Those will be degrees basically. So we'll press G, then Y and move it up. And of course we'll need to move this as well so we actually see what happens there. So let's press G, then Y, and you know, this way we are tilting the helicopter, and something like this should be enough, something like 15 degrees. So the helicopter will fly away like this and come in at an angle. And here we kind of need the angle to be more negative, so we can press Shift D and move new keyframe here and go into the negative angle amount like this. And the helicopter will basically tilt back when it's slowing down. You know, we can press G then Y, move it even more towards the bottom. And here on the curve you can see if the helicopter is tilting too soon, you can always just duplicate this keyframe and let it hold its rotation a little bit longer, like this. Okay, so these are the basic movements we'll need for the whole animation. Let's enable the Y location. Let's select everything and press period on a numpad to kind of zoom in on the whole action. And right now it'll be all about, you know, that movement polish. So first of all, let's make the helicopter start a little bit later on that Y location movement, somewhere here. So I want it to raise up, tilt, and then start moving towards the front. I think it'll look more natural and maybe not so late. Just ease into it a little bit more. Okay, and let's look at this part here. And I like the landing, but it should be a little bit more eased out here. So let's try to move this handle on the x-axis and make it ease into it a little bit more. Alright, so that's it, and one thing we are definitely missing is some propeller movement, of course. So let's select the propeller. This is the thing we'll animate separately, and let's press I and insert the rotation keyframe here, and again we'll just need the Z rotation there. So let's select the X rotation, press X to delete, and same for the Y rotation. And here I will be entering number values for these rotations, so let's move to that frame 30. And we'll make 720 degrees there on the Z-axis. And let's press I, hovering over this value. We have new keyframe there. So we can see we are making 2 rounds of rotation. And then from here, basically to that frame 190, we want to accelerate that. So I don't know, like 10 rotations maybe should be enough. So we'll need to add another 7200 degrees of rotation. You can just press R, Z and 7200. And you can see the new value here. Let's press I to insert. Make sure you are on that frame 190. So you can see it's rotating. And here the final rotation should be just another 720. So let's press R, Z and 720. And let's again press I to insert here. And now for the first keyframe, we can press T and add linear, and here as well. The motion will be constant, and here there will be some actual acceleration and deceleration. And if you press A, hovering here, and period on a numpad, you can see the whole chart for this animation as well. And now we won't be needing X and Y rotations, so let's press X to delete them, and let's test out our animations. So there is some movement. Okay. I quite like this, so let's animate the camera as well, but we can see this propeller should be rotating as well, but here we'll just make it really easy. Let's go to frame 1, press I and insert the rotation keyframe. We'll be rotating on X-axis, so let's delete the Y and Z rotations. And now let's select the channel, press N, let's select modifiers, and let's add generator modifier, and basically we just created some movement. And the whole helicopter is animated, so let's take care of that camera. We can select it right here. Let's go to frame 1 and let's press I and insert the rotation. And now let's move to frame, I don't know, like here. We'll be following the helicopter up until, let's say, the frame 60. So we can press R, X twice to move it up, and RZ to move it here. Let's press I to insert the rotation. And now on the frame 90, we'll focus our camera on the approaching helicopter. So let's find the exact frame. I think it's 93. R, Z, and move it back like this. And then R, X twice, and move it up. Let's press I and insert the rotation. And here we'll need to look at the helicopter again on the frame 190. So we can just select the first frame, press Shift D, and duplicate it right there. So this is not exactly finished product, and we'll need to do one more adjustment, because right here we'll need the camera to wait a little bit until it refocuses. So let's duplicate these sets of frames as well. And here you can see we are turning before the helicopter appears, so we need to move this like that. Okay, this is looking quite fine. So we have some camera following movement, and you know, there is always a lot of things you can do with the animation, a lot of polishing. So for example, here I would probably hold up the beginning of that movement. Maybe here we could follow a little bit longer, and maybe this is too high up, so let's press R, then X, and move it down a little bit. Let's press I, insert new rotation. Okay, I quite like this, so let's take care of some rendering settings, and let's switch to cycles, and I will enable GPU and some denoising, decrease the tiling size and samples. For the animation I will use something like 128, not more. And now let's go to the layout view, let's enable camera, and since we didn't add any positioning keyframes, we can freely move the camera back and it will just work. Let's now reset the cursor to world origin. Let's press Shift A and let's add plane. We can create some background here, and let's select the helicopter, and we can go to the material preview, and let's set the base material to be, for example, metallic. I think that will look quite nice. And let's add the same material to the other parts of the helicopter as well. Maybe we can have a different material for the propeller, so let's disable that one and let's add like a dark gray material or something, and same for the propeller on top. And here we can add that metallic materials, and for the landing gear as well. And now let's add some windows, so tab in, go for face select by pressing 3, select these 4 faces and these 2, create a new material slot, and I will press Ctrl+ to increase that selection there. So I include the small parts around the windows and click assign. Now tab out and we can add a new material there, go all the way black and decrease the roughness tiny bit if you wish. And now select the background, add a new material, and let's go something like blue. Okay, that will do. And now let's press Shift A and let's add some light, sunlight. Let's press G then Z and move it up. And I will hit period on a keyboard and switch to 3D cursor. Now RX 30 degrees and RZ -45. So we have the sunlight shining from the side here. And let's increase to something like 3. And I will press Ctrl B and select the camera bounce. So we are rendering only here, and let's enable a render preview. So this is what we have in place right now. It's a little bit dull. So first of all, let's press Shift A and let's add some area light. And I'll press RX 45 degrees minus and RX 45. So we have some backlight here. Increase its size and let's set it to something like 1500, and let's give it some, warm tone. This will make the scene a little bit more interesting. And now we can combine that with some, violet, dark violet world settings, and increase the roughness on the background, maybe reducing the specular a little bit, and then play with this color here as well. And when you're going to render, don't forget to enable motion blur. That's essential for this animation to make it look great. And yeah, basically that's the animation we have here. Of course, you will probably need to take care of the background, do some infinite background setup or something, or change the camera angle, whatever works for you. And for the rendering, just go into the output settings and choose some folder here, and then switch from PNG to FFmpeg and choose encoding, for example MP4, and just hit Ctrl F12 or go render animation, and you should have your file ready. If you're worried your PC will crash, then leave this as PNG and it will render out the whole PNG sequence that you can compose later in some editor. So that's it for the quick little helicopter animation. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave that like, it will really help me. And again, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.